Good morning, everyone, and it's most exciting to do a discussion first thing in the morning. I would like to welcome all our panelists, and thanks for making it to Goa. What we're going to discuss is, in every industry today, and more so in BFSI, customers are changing. Customer expectations have changed far more radically than the organizations themselves. So customers are not buying products these days anymore. Customers are buying experiences offered by products or services companies. Customers are more horizontally aligned when it comes to their expectations, while our organizations are structured vertically in functions, which means that every function or role in an organization holds the customer experience for a very short period of time. Now, with that given, how do we deliver customer success consistently? That's the question. The good news is that talent is the new currency, and Amitabh also mentioned that in his address yesterday. Talent is no more an HR problem alone. Talent is a systemic problem. And to discuss that, we have a very interesting mix of panelists here. We have Santhosh Cherian, who is responsible for the competency development of 1.5 lakh people and counting. He's the head of learning development for HDFC Bank, comes with a rich experience, multicultural experience in Indian and international markets, in tech, banking, and consulting. Welcome, Santhosh. We have Saurabh Wadhwa, who's a passionate learning leader with experience in banking, insurance, and financial services, and very recently a winner of Brandon Hall Award for Kotak's Learning Affair platform. He's the head of organization learning for Kotak Mahindra Bank. We have Atul Bhandari, a former banker, entrepreneur, and now he's heading digital business for insurance with Tata AIA Life. And we have Sohandeep Hattar, who's currently responsible for industry academia initiatives for ICICI Bank and human resources for bank's international subsidiaries and branches. Thanks to all of you for joining. So what we would like to discuss, I want to start with asking all of you, in all your roles, whether it's a digital business driving customer engagement directly through business, or whether it's enabling people in your CLO roles, or ensuring supply of the right talent at the right time to business. In all your roles, you're working towards the same goal of creating awesome customer experience and driving business, right? And in the last 2 years, it's also true that you've come across a variety of talent-related challenges, disengagement, attrition, and so on. So in the past year, what has been your biggest talent-related challenges that has slowed down your ambition towards this goal of growth, and how have you addressed this? Santhosh, can we start with you?
Sure. So it's a very interesting question, right? And I come from HDFC Bank. And HDFC Bank, if you talk to almost everybody in this room, many of you will come and tell me that you have some kind of a relationship or the other with HDFC Bank, because it's fairly large. It's the largest private bank in the country per se. So having said that, the biggest challenge that we encounter in HDFC Bank is essentially scale, the scale of operations. It is mammoth. It's a behemoth. Okay, you're talking about a customer base of 70 million and growing. You're talking about 6,200 plus branches across 3,000 plus locations, right? So with the growth that we constantly keep experiencing, and it's just growing, and as we speak, we're getting more and more people in the organization, we're getting more and more customers. The complexity that we have to constantly manage is essentially handling the scale of what we do. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether your customer is in a tier 1 city or a tier 3 or 4 location. The experience has to be excellent, because customers really don't come for products. when they engage with a banking or a financial services organization, they engage because they want to have a long-term relationship with that organization, which is based on trust. So, I constantly keep hearing this, that the biggest asset of any organization, any banking and financial services organization, is the trust that the customer has in the services that you extend to them and the relationship that you've built with them on the basis of the values that you espouse and that you, live out in reality. So making sure that every one of our 150,000 plus employees understand that customer centricity is a key to our continued and sustained growth and success is key, and constantly reinforcing that, because it's not a one-time event, it is not a one-time communication. But we have to find various means and ways of ensuring that the entire populace that we cover gets that message consistently. I think that has been the biggest challenge for us. So scale and the complexity associated with the scale of our operations. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Santhosh. Saurabh, what's your view on that?
I think most banks, one is the common problem that everyone's experiencing is that the banks look at problems in a product-centric or a sales-centric way so far. How do we start addressing those business problems in a customer-centric way? That's a big shift that needs to come in. And also customer experiences at the various touch points of a bank and people. Retention of talent becomes extremely critical for that. Every time a customer visits a branch and he realizes that there's a new person on the side, on the desk, he doesn't have the experience that he expects it. And the worst part is that the technology is still not being able to cope up to bring that history of client to readily available to a talent right behind the desk to be able to converse with the clients. All these are big problems at this point of time. So, and customer centricity is a culture. It's not a skill. You can't say that you will train people on customer service and that they will end up creating a great customer experience. It starts at the top, and it's a big mindset shift that's required. And walking away from product-centric approach and a sales-centric approach to a customer-centric approach is the shift that we need to focus on from a talent standpoint. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Atul, what's been the biggest challenge in the last year related to talent? You drive business and there would be teams supporting you. You drive business through digital platforms. So there would be a digital platform team who's creating that environment for you, those platforms, and learning teams who are supporting, enabling talent to drive, so to ensure that you have the right people available at the right time. What's been your challenge related to talent?
I think two interesting things which have kind of played out over the last couple of years. One is, insurance is a reasonably high growth industry in selective pockets, probably higher than what you normally see in the BFSI space industries which have been around, or businesses which have been around for 15, 20 years and beyond. So there is an element of, therefore, an appetite for the organization to look at a high growth. And sometimes, and what we've seen largely again in the last couple of years, that becomes a bit of a gap between the expectation of the organization or the ability and appetite of the organization versus, let's say, the availability and the talent strength to kind of actually make that happen, right? So you have a long list of things that you want to do versus what you're actually able to execute. So there is, I think, that one element of that gap, which I would say is a problem more recent, or the gap is kind of becoming wider in more recent times. The other thing is obviously, I think, more consumer-led. Customers have been used to doing a lot of transactions online. It started with shopping, but I think it's transcended beyond shopping to literally lots and lots of categories. I think BFSI has digitized a lot of processes, but primarily from a D2C kind of a setup. I think the digital space is still discovering a lot of things in terms of how to make it seamless, what do the customer actually want, whether you're able to offer your full suite in that kind of a setup and so on. So I think that aspect of the problem still needs to be solved, and therefore you need the right amount of talent and you need the right skilling to be done for those people to actually solve those problems, because I think that's the reason why we have such a huge play in the fintech and the insurtech space right now, because people are looking at sub-segments of these problems and trying to solve that.
Thank you for that. Sohan?
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm from ICICI Bank, so I'd like to share, our approach and thought around this question that Ruchi has posed. So I would say when it comes to customer experiences, the biggest disruptor so far has been technology. And I think after the pandemic, and more so while the whole world was passing through pandemic, the impact of technology or the lack of it actually has got accentuated. So our approach is to, humbly acknowledge this fact that technology is the biggest differentiator when it comes to customer experience, and we need to do something about it. So close to about 2 to 3 years back, we started this transformation, exercise in the bank, where we said that we will move from being a bank to a bank tech. And how do we embed technology into different, in fact, all parts of our bank, ensuring that there are seamless digital journeys available for customers, and even existing platforms that we have like iMobile or internet banking. How do we further improve these platforms in addition to creating new platforms like Trade or Instabiz, which today have also become open architecture. You don't need to be a customer of ICICI Bank to actually use these open architecture platforms, and that's the journey that we have done. So while we were envisioning what would the world look like in terms of business, what would be the needs of the customer, the natural question that we came to was that what would be the kind of technology that we would require to power these kind of needs that will be there in the customers. So we sat down and spelled out what are the skills of future which we need to build in our employees today. So since 2021, I would say, we have started this exercise of skilling our employees. And that's where, partners like NIIT University and RPS are doing a wonderful job for us, because the skills that we have identified in technology for the core set of people that we have, both in data as well as in technology functions and product functions, is where we are actually deploying powerhouses like NIIT University and RPS to help us, overcome this challenge.
Thank you. It's interesting, there are a variety of challenges that you all shared, from scale to making learning customer centricity a culture, to enabling people to work with the new digital systems. All of them, focusing on creating customer success. I want to ask a specific question to you, Atul, first. So Tata AIA has 3 core values, 2 of which are customer obsession and people are core. Now, how do you hold up these values when the environment of talent is broken? So on one side, you are innovating and you're putting in practice new business models, digital systems. And on the other side, you have problems of disengagement, attrition. So with that, how do you ensure that these people they have the right skill sets and mindsets to work with the new business operating models? And at the same time, get them prepared to follow your value of customer obsession.
So I think that's an interesting one, Ruchi. And apart from the 2 values that you mentioned, our third one is striving for excellence. So I think the first 2 kind of overlay that to make sure that the end objectives are kind of done with the intention to make sure that we achieve the end objective. And from a consumer point of view, it's done in the right form or shape. And to kind of get the end delivery done. Essentially, what we have looked at to kind of get the talent teams engaged is, one, define roles in a clearer way. That has also helped us, I would say, make it a bit more exciting than the normal mundane run of things, because particularly on the technology side, again, representing more of the D2C space, there is always this element of people want to try out new things. There is an element that you need to, I would say, add, which brings some amount of design work, which brings some amount of thought work, and at the same time, which I think what we heard in the earlier session is to look towards breaking some amount of silos to make sure that you're driving towards the end objective of the organization. So one of the pieces that we've tried to do, and I think reasonably successfully, is we piloted this entire working model of bringing the agile way of working beyond what normally the tech delivery teams do to actually the full business objective. And I think something that has worked for us is that we've kind of created, therefore, a task force of sorts, which then runs across multiple functions, whether it is on the demand generation side, on the digital space, to the design, the UI UX work, taking it further to the fulfillment teams. And then there is an overlay of someone who looks at the entire funnel. So we've created some unique roles to make sure that there is excitement around the endpoint. And that has been, I think, very successfully implemented. And it has allowed us over a period of time to change the objectives for the squads, to kind of repurpose some of the goal sheets for people, look towards deploying the right amount of energy with the end objective in mind, which is aligned to the organization goals. And I think what we have also observed is that while it took us a bit of time in the initial period of, let's say, transitioning to this, to get people to think about how this works, what will change in their lives in terms of how we assess them at the end of the year and so on. But that transition has been very powerful in people acknowledging that they do contribute to the end business, to be able to see the right output at the end of, let's say, every experimentation cycle that kind of runs through. And that to us has been a very powerful tool to actually empower people. And we are seeing that kind of play out very successfully. It keeps engagement levels very high. People are able to see the results of what they're trying to do very quickly. Sometimes they fail. I mean, so that's also part and parcel of the game. But you get to an endpoint quickly. And it's just become so energizing for the people that literally we have, from a time originally when we used to force people to make sure they run a certain schedule, to now the reverse, where if the schedule gets missed or if someone is kind of missing from that squad at that particular time, people feel that, it's a family member which is missing, and, some part of the wheel is not kind of operating properly. So that's been one interesting piece that we have observed.
Right, interesting. You said you've created some unique roles to drive this better. Can you talk more about that?
So one of the pieces we did is that, again, just to break the silo piece, typically you give tasks to someone, right, and they end up executing. So to the comment made earlier, bring me five hamburgers, right? So that's just someone given a task, he delivers the task, and that's it. What we have done is we've also overlaid, a particular role which looks at this from an end-to-end point of view. They are responsible for everything, and at the same time technically executing nothing, right? Because eventually everybody's kind of building bits and pieces of the value chain, but then you have someone who's looking at it, who's holding it together, and it goes beyond, I would say, the MISs and the analytics of it, because that's the grease on the ball bearings, right? They look through what is going wrong, they look through what is working well, they are able to actually assess the impact of whatever is being done. And it's become a very interesting role. We had trouble hiring for it because it's very difficult to explain sometimes to someone that what is it that you're supposed to do. But it's been, again, very powerful. And in some sense now, that role helps activate the squad a lot faster, because they are able to see things which are happening, let's say, on both sides of the spectrum. And they are able to bring that insight in to say, you know what, you did this, and therefore that happened. Right? So that correlation kind of gets done very quickly, and it's part of the team. So it's not a supervisor sitting on top who normally would look at it and then kind of comment. This is someone part of the team.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Santhosh, you did mention about scale that you have to handle, whether it's incubating new skills or integrating new talent or elevating the skills of the current workforce. You have large complexity that you handle. I picked up something from Amitabh's session today. He said that middle managers are the sole translators of employer proposition. And he said that any change that an organization wants to drive, middle managers are the last frontier to do that. So while you mentioned that you're doing a lot to the frontline workers to enable them to consistently align to your goal, what are you doing for middle managers so that they are able to support the front lines?
I'm glad you asked that particular question. So frontline, yes, there's a lot of focus, but the development support or the capability development support extends across the board, right? And I think all of us have been middle managers, and I've been one too in the past. And one of the things that I really empathize with the middle managers is that they are the ones who are front-ending the frontliners. And at the same time, they are the ones to whom the goals and targets and the pressures, etc., are being cascaded or being percolated to from some of their senior leaders. So there have been instances, right? You have, I'm not talking about my organization, so don't quote me anywhere. What stated here stays here, I guess. So one of the things that I've noticed in my career also is that you have a lot of senior leaders who will come and promise the heaven, earth, and sky in terms of your employee experience, engagement, making this the greatest place to work, blah, blah, blah. And so that's what many of these frontline guys kind of just take away or assimilate, and then they go back to work, and it's just pressure, pressure, pressure. Because at the end, there are targets, there are goals that you need to do, and there's a lot of frustration that is somehow being deflected on the middle managers because they expect something because of what some of the senior leaders have said, but their experience on the ground seems to be very different. And therefore, a lot of the blame is apportioned to the middle managers. I've experienced that myself, so I know, right? So one of the things is that we focus on when it comes to the middle managers is equipping them with the ability to stay resilient. That, this is not forever. They are in a role. It is a very difficult role. And also to share with them that all of us have been through this journey. It's not that, many of the leaders haven't been through this journey, but also sensitizing the senior leadership in terms of the support they can extend to the middle managers to be successful. Because if the middle managers are disengaged and they are not successful, it's going to reflect on how the frontline performs. So it's not just a flagship program that we do for the middle managers per se. Yes, we have specific programs for the middle managers because we also see them as the future leaders of the organization. So while the focus is on the growth in the future and their success in the future, a lot of work is also talking to them in understanding what is the support that they need to stay resilient and still deliver results. So that's what we focus on a lot when it comes to that particular segment. So we operate with a lot of empathy towards that particular group of middle managers.
Well said. Thank you. So I read some of your annual reports, and Saurabh, Kotak's annual report, something that very clearly stands out is customer experience. Your head of CX says not sales focus, not service focus, experience focus. And in your role, you're responsible for ensuring that all your people across channels, whether it's digital, virtual, or even field sales, are consistently delivering a superlative experience to customers and driving value creation. And we all know that customer experience is like a moving escalator, Ron Kaufman. If you don't move your service level up, your customer experience will keep coming down. So with that kind of scale and variety of channels, how do you ensure, or are you driving any specific initiatives to ensure that all your people are driving consistent experience for customers?
I think we've started addressing this problem in layers. So the first thing is that we've realized that you don't hire people to sell. You hire people first with who bring the empathy on the table. So we, across all levels, whether it's customer-facing roles, non-customer-facing roles, or at the leadership roles, there's an empathy assessment that they go through, that you hire people with required empathy, number one. Now, there's a set of people that already exist in the bank. Now, the big challenge is the middle layer that you just spoke of. We've realized that how do you build an empathy? It's not an easy, it's not a skill, but then you can definitely build capabilities in middle management. How do you how do you engage with the frontliners as they are the frontliners to the frontliners? So we have some initiatives like managers as coaches, managers as mentors, and managers as trainers. And the underlying theme of all the three is the empathy that you bring in. At a top level, at a leadership level, what we are trying to do right now is we looking at how do we look at all customer workflows, journeys, and realign those to the customer experience. What I mean to say is that there's a transformational journey that the leadership is going through at this point of time, which is where They understand, go back, look at the research data, what the customers do, what do they think, and what do they say. And if it involves a deeper research, they do that. They come back, they look at the products, they look at the customer journeys and workflows, realign everything to the customer experience. And then they present this to a startup CEOs who comes in as coaches to them. They handhold, support them, and realign everything. So one of the initiatives that I want to just tell you that we have business verticals which works as an independent organization. We realize that a customer is a client to different business verticals. How can we have a central database of a customer that he doesn't have to do a re-KYC every time he opts for a new product with a different business? That's also an experience. We realize that over a period of time, that's how you integrate it. So there's a lot happening at a front line. We're looking at hiring people with empathy. Middle level, we're building the capabilities, how they engage with the front line. At the top level, we are realigning our customer workflows, journeys, and products to customer experience now, and not the revenue focus and sales focus.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. And my question to you, Sohandeep. So in your role, you are building hundreds and thousands of frontline as well as middle-level relationship managers. In a lot of our conversations when we work with banks as well as insurance companies, we've heard a common problem from business leaders that we want our salespeople to be moving away from product pushing and think of customer value creation. Now, one decade or more than that back, salespeople needed to have these skills that they needed to have in-depth product knowledge, they needed to be good at interpersonal skills, and needed to be extrovert to be able to sell. Now, salespeople today are expected to also have consultative selling skills. They also need to leverage data, derive insights, right? And they need to be much more smarter than what was expected 10 years back. Now, how do you address this problem with the kind of volume of relationship managers that you're intaking, developing, deploying? How do you train your people's mindsets to move away from product pushing to customer experience?
Sure. Yeah, so correct. So actually the role of a relationship manager has become more complex than what it used to be earlier. And that is where I would say that our thought process of actually partnering with various training institutes to prepare people for banking domain. We started this very early since 2006, 2007, and NIIT used to be our first partner, and till date we are partnering with them. That part, banking domain, taken care of. The other thing that we have done, and this is again through various insights that we have got over the years, for the last 5 years there is no goal sheet, there is no KPI which is there for any employee in the bank. There is only one number which the entire bank chases, and that's the overall profitability of the bank. There are no product-wise targets, there are no product-wise reviews that are happening in the bank. The only instruction that is given to relationship manager today is that you're not supposed to sell anything to the customer. What you're supposed to do is to go and engage. Engage, understand what the customer wants, and then represent the entire bank to the customer. Don't talk about that I am only from auto and I can only talk about auto. It is your job to understand each and every product in the bank and offer that solution, or work with your colleagues at the back end to provide that solution to the customer. In fact, what Sapnesh was saying, that silo mentality actually comes in a big way in providing a great customer experience. And through experience, we have done some kind of, you can say, organization design, where we have got different entities to actually sit together, different functions to sit together. We call them ecosystem branches. For example, on the corporate side, earlier it used to be the relationship team which will go and engage with the corporates. The transaction banking team which will actually look at the day-to-day transactions on liabilities for these particular corporates. And then there would be nothing from the retail side that will actually get offered to those corporates. So we have got all these teams together. Today we have close to about 11 ecosystem branches all across the country, where all multifunctional teams sit together and their only job is to ensure that they serve opportunity pools which are there in each of these ecosystems that we have identified. So our job has been to simplify how the RM would approach the customer. We believe in this slogan, in this philosophy of fair to bank, fair to the customer. By fair to bank, we mean that we should be providing fair value to the customer and all the stakeholders that are there in the bank. And fair to customer, when we say, it is basically to say the touchstone is that when you are providing any solution or a product or a service to the customer, would your response be any different if you were to provide that to your own brother and sister or your parents? So if the solution passes that touchstone, then you're doing service to the customer, you're being fair to the customer as well. So these are some, philosophical and I would say cultural interventions that we have done, whereby we are able to manage both the domain part through strong players like NIIT, which are helping us, and culturally and organizational design-wise is what we are able to actually deal with this challenge.
That's wonderful. Very innovative way to develop empathy mindset. And so you've in a way dissolved boundaries of individual targets at frontline and everybody looking at the bigger goal. Thank you. But I'm sure all of you would also be facing this problem of frontline people trying to push products and not thinking customer value creation. So would any of you also like to add to what Sohandeep said? Are you doing anything specific to develop that kind of mindset in your organization? Atul?
So I think this is, obviously a very cultural shift, I think what Sohandeep spoke about. Essentially, I think what we have been looking to do, and again, conscious efforts are being made towards that, is don't look at customer conversations as transactions. We either ways deal with a lot of customers, not necessarily directly, but through intermediaries, through partners, through distribution setups, including banks for that matter. But I think one of the core shifts that we are attempting to do, and I think we are kind of making plans towards it, which are showing some right results, is to look at what can we do with the existing customer base as well, right? So once we have reached a certain size scale, there is there are two elements of what happens on the insurance side. One is whether people keep coming back to you to, let's say, pay premiums again and again every year, what we kind of track as persistency levels. They get published across organizations. Touchwood, we have done phenomenally well on that. But I think consciously from the point on the sales side, what we have now transcended that to is to actually look at seeing how do you make sure you can go back to the same customer and offer him something else. Right? So it then therefore goes beyond that aspect of having one particular product that I want to kind of push, let's say every month. Once that is done, kind of I'm finished. No, we're changing that approach to say you have a full suite. There is always that portfolio asset allocation which happens. Insurance is a very solid part of that, and it's not only limited to one or two solutions. So how do you therefore give them the right training mindset change to look at customer from a lifetime value perspective versus one transaction? That's one. And the other piece, I think in some form or shape, we're also assisting them now with data. So we try and create mechanisms by which we are able to actually feed the frontline team with relevant information, with relevant timing, to make sure that they're actually able to use what you're trying to guide them towards, right? So it's one thing to say, look at customer in a holistic sense, look at what else can you offer. But essentially, these are not relationship managers at our end where we know what the overall portfolio is, right? So you have limited information. But then how do you use that limited information to make sure that you're still able to go back to the customer and make sure that your conversation is relevant to the customer? Eventually, the choice remains obviously with the client. But that thought process and that empowerment to support him to kind of make that shift is something that, we are very consciously working on.
Wonderful, thanks. I want to extend what you said. So, the leverage of data. You all work with a variety of customers. Some customers are internet savvy. Some may want a personal connect, human connect. Some may want to be given a lot of personal attention, or some even want to be part of your product design journeys, right? And with a distributed workforce, how do you, one, make use of customer data to create better personalized, differentiated customer experiences? And second, are your people equipped to leverage that kind of data and give that differentiated experience? Would you want to give an example, Saurabh?
So we understand customer personas right now. We get into, there's no one size fit all, and we don't paint all clients with one paintbrush. There are all kinds of customers. We are very strong in commercial lending and agri finance and tractor finance, and equally strong in the wealth side of the business as well, which is a portfolio of 10 crores plus AUM typically for each client. So, and there's very, very different ways of handling it. And as much as we feel that the clients are not digitally savvy, we realize that they are. It's all about how much do you know about it and how do you leverage the data about the client's preferences, taste, and how they behave. There are data points that we've started capturing about customers to be able to take right decisions for customers. That's what we're doing it. So we've done that in the past, but we've got going much deeper into it right now. So that's one. And I also, we realized another thing is that we hire people for empathy and we train them for being consultative. So empathy is what they bring in, and being consultative is what we train them on. So anybody right now today comes in, we focus on a journey from a learning ready to a role ready. So learning ready means we put them on a right learning mindset, that what it is, what can you expect from what you are going to go through, and what is expected of you. Then industry ready. If you don't understand the industry, we give you the desired know-how about the industry to be. Then organization ready. Do you have the real pride for being a part of the company because you represent a brand? And there's a DNA that you need to demonstrate while you are on the forefront. The other is then the business ready. Do you really understand your business, which is the product process system? But that is the what part of it. Real part is the role ready. The last part is where you need to be consultative. That's become, so its entire journey is strongly knitted, and we make people role ready to be able to converse well with clients and not being able to focus on products but be more consultative in the approach. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Santhosh, would you want to add particularly how do you leverage customer data to give them personalized experiences, and how are your people equipped to do that?
I think some answers to that question have come from my very erudite co-panelists, so I'm not going to repeat anything that they've said. There are just a couple of points that I'll touch upon briefly. One is we talk about know your customer, right? And somehow it gets relegated to just a documentation of knowing your customer. Everyone goes through that. And you all get calls once in a while saying that, have you updated it, etc. For us, the crux of relationship management is truly knowing your customer, okay? And because we also deal with a very, very, very diverse customer base, different demographics, etc. So to the extent that every relationship manager has built a relationship in order to understand what the customer really needs and then recommending products that will suit their need, that results in better outcomes and sales for us. Okay, because sometimes just if you're going to be very pesky with your customer, more often than not, they're going to block your number. So trying to really understand, and see, it's not that we've got there. We are working on that. So you talked about customer persona, you talked about empathy and using data, etc. So a lot of that is there in the background to equip our relationship managers to know the customer in the truest possible sense. When it comes to equipping our learners, we talk about our employees showing empathy to our customers, right? So we as a learning team, we ask ourselves, are we empathetic towards our learners who are actually employees? I mean, they've got a tough job. It is not an easy job. Banking and financial services is not easy at all. I'm not saying the other jobs are easy, but I'm saying in the realm that we are in, it is very challenging. It's targets, it's numbers, driving sales. At the end of it, that matters, right? And delivering stakeholder value as an end product. So we try to see how best we can give them the right information at the right time. And so we need to be really nimble and need to be really creative. We just can't go by, oh, this worked well and therefore I will do it forever. we constantly ask ourselves, what is working, what is not working? How can we give them just the right type of information at the right time without allowing it to be a cognitive overload, if I can use that fancy term, and making sure that at the end of it, anything that we do contributes to making them build strong relationships with a customer that will eventuate in better sales, profitability, and growth for the organization. So it's all overlinked. It is not disparate. It is all overlinked. So two things is knowing your customer, and the second, if I can just extend that to the learners, knowing your learners, the pulls and the pressures, and ensuring that they are equipped in the best possible manner to do their best.
Thank you. Now I have one last question for you, and it's a tough one. 2 decades back, we used to say customer is God. Then the last decade was about saying happy people bring happy customers. What's your mantra for the coming decade when it comes to enabling people to create customer value? Sohandeep, can we start from you?
So, Ruchi, see, banking is a business of trust. And we believe that it is our job to keep it simple, both for the person who's offering this service and more so for the customers who are actually going to consume that service. So our mantra is, in addition to fair to bank, fair to customer, it's keep banking simple.
Very nice. Thank you. Atul?
I think that's a tough question. So I think essentially what I can say is more, I think, running with the theme of our conversation is that consumers are always at the center point of what we try and design and do. But over a period of time, I think especially in the BFSI space, the products and propositions tend to become somewhat commoditized. There are nuances, but kind of become similar. So essentially it is, you need a good leader to dream, and the leader will dream, but eventually to make that succeed, you need the right talent. So that is essentially, I think, what will drive the next few years, maybe the next decade, I don't know. But I think that will drive a lot of things which people want to do, especially in the new paradigms of what last few years have changed in terms of customer ways of dealing with things across multiple products. I think that would probably be the next step.
Thank you. Saurabh?
I would agree with Sandeep. Simplification is highly underrated today. So keep things simple and do simple things right is important at this point of time. So if you would look at any customer journeys, products, it's just keeping things simple. And simplification is the core motto and DNA that we are focusing on. As it is, regulator adds a lot of complexities to us, by the way. And we can't walk away with that. But yet we need to keep it simple for our customers. That's the motto.
Thank you. So simplicity is winning so far. Santhosh?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a brilliant statement that was made by Sohandeep. And maybe this is going to sound a little esoteric. I would say it should be simplicity for the customer. So it'll be simplicity at the end of complexity. We manage the complexities, keep it simple for the customers. That's the bottom line.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great insights. We have just about 2 minutes, so I would check if audience has any questions. Yes, please. Can we give the mic here?
Devil is always on play. So hi, good morning everyone. This is Sanjeev. I come from Publicis Group. We are into digital consulting for pretty much BFSI globally. Thank you for the insightful conversation. I have a few thoughts and one leading to the question which any of the panelists can take up. So I think BFSI currently, since I'm from a business and at some point in time I've been part of the talent side as well, so I can really empathize the challenges that you all learning leaders face in terms of creating talent for the organization, because I consume those talents within the business. I think BFSI is going through a rapid transformation. For us, it is technology, business, process. At the same time, all of us talked about customer experience transformation. The most ironic part of experience is it's not static, right? What was a normal today, or rather wow today, will become a very normal tomorrow, right? We were talking about physical banking, we talked about virtual banking, we migrated to neo banking, now we are talking about AI chatbots and different communication channels for customers. So our customer experience, I think all of you spoke about customer experience. Since it's very dynamic, the customer expectation of the experience is also evolving, right? Today, customer has an expectation of not only omni-channel experience, but also has a different channel of communications as well. One of the biggest challenges that we are facing right now is that how do we cope up with some of the expectation of AI-based communication channels. So within the banks that you actually represent, how are you leading that sea change to transform that communication expectation of the customer to something like AI chatbots, or I'm sure all of you heard about ChatGPT, where people are actually seeking that channel to communicate to the banking industries, right? So within your organization, how you're coping with that transformation, and any insight around what are those proactive measures that you're taking within your function? Thank you.
So I'll attempt, sir, to answer your question. So I'll attempt to answer at the philosophical level. So I think use of, let's say, robotic process automation or chatbots or AI for not only communication but also processing of information and design of what product actually goes to which customer in terms of propensity and suitability has been done quite, I would say it's reached a certain degree of proficiency in various sectors, in the country. What I think AI will never be able to do, and that's my view which I want to leave you with, is innovation. So innovation will come only from the human mind. AI, I think it's just a program. It's it's claimed that AI can think and learn and can do something which is going to be innovative. But so far we have never seen anything which is innovative, which has not been actually programmed into the algorithm using the AI technology. So I think innovation, the job of innovating and envisioning what will be the next expectation of the customer, what would be the new way of serving the customer need, would still continue to happen through human mind. And that's where I think our product teams, our design teams have to be really skilled in cutting edge technology. But at the same time, it is their job to actually come up with solutions which will actually power the future for the customers. That's what my view is.
Thank you, Sohan. And with that, I would like to thank all the panelists once more for great insights and for joining us for this conversation. I enjoyed it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruchi. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.